Rain lashed against my windshield as I pulled up to the old Fisher house. It was a Victorian mansion, once grand, now crumbling under the weight of neglect. The paint peeled, the windows were dark eyes, and the whole place reeked of decay. Not exactly the cheerful cleaning gig I was hoping for, but work was work. Stepping out of my car, I felt a chill crawl up my spine. The wind howled through the trees, sounding like a chorus of whispers. I shivered, pulling my jacket tighter. The air felt heavy, like something unseen watched me. This place had a presence, a darkness that settled deep in my gut. I walked up the creaking porch steps, each one groaning under my weight. The air grew colder, the shadows deeper. Taking a deep breath, I knocked on the weathered oak door. The sound echoed through the silence, unanswered. The real estate agent had warned me the house was empty. Still, I couldn't shake the feeling that I wasn't alone. A prickling sensation ran down my neck. I turned the rusted handle and stepped inside. The air inside was stale and thick with dust. Cobwebs draped the corners like macabre decorations. Furniture, shrouded in white sheets, loomed like ghosts. The only light came from the slivers of gray sky peeking through the grimy windows. I took a cautious step forward, my footsteps echoing in the silence. The smell of damp wood and decay filled my nostrils. It was the smell of forgotten things, of secrets buried under years of dust and silence. The house seemed to press in on me, the silence broken only by the creak of floorboards under my feet. I found the light switch, but the bulb flickered and died. The shadows deepened, swallowing the room in an inky blackness that felt almost alive. Suddenly, a floorboard creaked behind me. I spun around, heart pounding against my ribs. Nothing. Just the wind rattling the windows and my own fear playing tricks on me. Still, I couldn't shake the feeling of being watched. I made my way to the library, the real estate agent's only instruction being to air out the place. The room was dark, the shelves lined with books untouched for decades. Dust caked the spines and the air hung heavy with the smell of mildew. As I worked my way around the room, my hand brushed against something cold and hard. I jumped back, my heart in my throat, before realizing it was a small wooden chest tucked beneath a pile of books. Curiosity got the better of me. I pulled it out, brushing off the years of dust. Inside, nestled in faded velvet, lay a leather-bound diary. The leather was cracked and dry, the pages yellowed with age. On the cover, embossed in faded gold, were the words, "Father Augustine's Diary, 1910. A shiver ran down my spine. This house held secrets, dark and old. I had a feeling this diary held the key. I settled down in a dusty armchair, the diary open in my lap. The priest's handwriting was spidery and elegant, a stark contrast to the chilling words that filled the pages. He wrote of his arrival in the village, a place shrouded in fear and suspicion.
The people here are different. Their eyes are haunted, their smiles strained. They speak of a darkness that has fallen upon their village, a malevolence that chills them to the bone.
He described strange occurrences, whispers in the night, objects moving on their own, and children waking up screaming from nightmares of unseen horrors. He spoke of a growing unease, a sense of being watched. He felt a presence lurking in the shadows, something ancient and evil. The villagers called it a demon, a malevolent entity preying on their fear and despair. His words sent a chill down my spine. I could feel the priest's growing fear seeping through the pages, each word a testament to the darkness he felt closing in. This wasn't just a story. It was a desperate plea for help from beyond the grave.
As I turned the brittle pages, the priest's entries became more frantic, his handwriting more erratic. He described a series of possessions, villagers gripped by an unseen force, their bodies contorted, their voices twisted into guttural growls.
He spoke of a young girl, barely 10 years old, her body racked with convulsions, her eyes burning with an unholy light.
The demon speaks through her, he wrote. Its voice a chilling whisper that promises pain and suffering.
He described his attempts to exorcise the demon, his prayers echoing in the silence of the possessed girl's room. But the entity refused to release its grip, growing stronger with each passing day.
The villagers watched in horror as their loved ones were twisted and tormented by an unseen force. The priest's words painted a terrifying picture, the lines blurring between his reality and the supernatural horrors he faced.
I could feel a knot of dread tightening in my stomach. The house felt colder now, the air thick with an oppressive presence. Night fell, and the shadows in the old house deepened. I continued to read, captivated by Father Augustine's harrowing tale. His entries spoke of sleepless nights, his faith tested by the relentless evil he faced.
My prayers seem to fall on deaf ears. The demon mocks me, its laughter echoing through the halls of this cursed village.
He described the villagers turning against him, their fear twisting into anger and distrust. They blamed him for their suffering, for failing to protect them from the darkness that consumed them. His words were filled with a profound sadness, a sense of utter helplessness against the overwhelming evil that had gripped the village. I could almost feel the weight of his burden, the crushing despair that threatened to consume him. Outside, the wind howled, mimicking the cries of the possessed villagers described in the diary. I shivered, pulling my jacket tighter around me. The line between the priest's words and my reality was blurring, the boundary between past and present fading with each turn of the page.
I feel it watching me, a constant presence lurking at the edge of my vision. The diary continued, each entry more disturbing than the last. Father Augustine's handwriting became frantic, the ink blotched as if tears had fallen on the pages. He described his own descent into fear, the shadows in his own mind whispering doubts and tempting him with despair.
He described objects moving on their own, unsettling whispers in the dead of night, and a feeling of being constantly watched by unseen eyes. Reading his words, I couldn't shake the feeling that I was experiencing the same terror. The house creaked and groaned around me, the wind howling like a banshee outside. Shadows seemed to dance at the edge of my vision, and the silence was punctuated by strange whispers I couldn't quite place. A cold dread settled in my stomach. Father Augustine's terror was contagious, seeping through the pages of his diary and into my own heart. I was no longer just reading a story, I was living it. I turned the page, my heart pounding in my chest. The final entry was short, the writing barely legible. It was dated October 31st, 1910.
It is here. I can feel its presence, cold and malevolent. It has taken hold of this house, this village. It mocks my prayers, feeds on my fear. I have failed to stop it. God forgive me.
The entry ended abruptly. The remaining pages were blank, as if the priest had been interrupted mid-sentence. A shiver ran down my spine. What had happened to Father Augustine? What had become of the village, the possessed villagers, the demon that haunted their lives? I looked up from the diary, my heart pounding in my chest. The house seemed to press in on me, the air thick with an oppressive presence. The shadows seemed deeper now, the silence heavier. I was no longer alone. A low growl echoed through the silence, sending a chill down my spine. It wasn't the wind this time. It came from the shadows, a guttural sound filled with malice and hunger. My blood ran cold. Fear, primal and instinctive, seized me. The diary slipped from my grasp, its pages fluttering to the dusty floor. I scrambled back, my eyes darting around the room, searching for the source of the sound. The air grew colder, the shadows deeper. The growl grew louder, closer, a symphony of inhuman rage and hunger. I could feel its presence now, a suffocating weight pressing down on me, stealing my breath, paralyzing me with fear. It was here, the demon, and it was not finished.